I'm Joe, and welcome to the Concord For All podcast. I want to first thank the folks at Minuteman Media who work so hard to help all of us in the community find new and different ways to communicate. And I want to talk a little bit about what Concord For All podcast is going to deal with. Because whether you're a resident of Concord, or you work here, or you go to school here, or gosh, you're just interested in what's going on in this little place, I thought that this conversation might be of interest to you. We really have working hard to try to figure out how we build a community, when we say a Concord For All, how we build a community that whether you live here, you work here, you visit here, or you go to school here, that you feel like tremendously welcome, you feel like you belong, and you feel like you are included. And that should be super easy, right? And we know that it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of different ways that we approach it. And I think one of the hard things is that Concord is known for a few things. We have this rich history of the opening shots of the American Revolution. We have a rich literary history of the 19th century with people like Louisa May Alcott and Henry David Thoreau. And that is what Concord kind of got famous for. But it's the 21st century, and we all still live here, and we're trying to figure out how to be more than just that image of the past. It's funny when you look back, Louisa May Alcott, who was a resident in the 1880s, she has this great quote which she says, she describes Concord, and she says, "Poor dull Concord, nothing colorful has come here since the redcoats." So it's even in the 1800s, people were realizing that we had to be more than just like a memory of the past. And for those of you have seen that this image sort of became locked in the 20th century. If you're a nerd and you watch, or you just love Jeopardy, I guarantee you can watch Jeopardy, and Concord somehow is a clue, at least monthly, on that show, reinforcing the themes that we're all known for. So really, by the middle of the 20th century, we got locked into this image of who we were. And this postcard I always like to show because it's such a good example of what we thought 20th century Concord was about. But this image and this idea, idealized of memory of the past, really left out a lot of folks. It left out the amazing indigenous history for 10, 12,000 years before anyone from Europe ever showed. It left out, in many respects, the black history of both free and enslaved Africans and black descendants and people of color who worked to build the town, fought in the Revolution, and then had this amazing 19th century history of abolition and expansion of human freedom. It left out the huge wave of immigrants that created like a 200% increase in the population of the town in the late 1800s and the 1900s. We know that if you were in Concord in the early 20th century, you would have seen a Jewish tailor in the center of town. You would have seen a Korean and Chinese immigrants running businesses both in Concord and West Concord. There were electric streetlights, neon signs, and trolleys running down the middle of the street. So this is all this sort of remembering this history, or the World War II Chinese-American pilot who was one of the most decorated Chinese-American veterans in the country, was a resident of Concord, was born here in Concord. So when we start bringing those stories back, that's one of the ways we start really building a Concord For All, because everyone sees themselves and becomes part of that story. So really the first key question a lot of these podcast episodes will deal with is, who were we as a town in the past? Now, for those of you who are like, oh God, is this going to be just like a history podcast? No. I mean, in addition to who we were, the second question we're going to work on is, who are we today? Who are we today in the 21st century? And this issues about the challenges we have about affordability and housing and how folks are able to move and live and thrive here. Maybe it's the accessibility issues we have, navigating these old historic byways. If you're a person that has any accessibility challenges, it's a tough road. If you haven't tried to be with a neighbor, or friend, or person who has challenges with mobility moving through, especially the center of our town, it might be sort of helping with, as we admit that we are a racially isolated community, that sort of the racial ethnic population of Concord is out of step with the neighbors around us. If you go to towns surrounding us, if you go to other communities in Metro West, you'll see that Concord looks different And there's a Boston Indicator study that came out in the last few years that between 2010 and the 2020 census, Concord is the only community in this area that actually lost a black population. So talking about those things, admitting those challenges, and trying to figure out what we can do about them is part of this discussion that we'll have in this podcast about who we are now. We know we have bias and hate incidents that happen in the town, both at the schools, in the town itself, racist graffiti scratched on benches or painted on benches, and we know that we've got the schools working on it, the town working on it, groups of citizens working on it, but that's something that we'll try to grapple with in this podcast, this bit about who are we today, because all understanding who we were and who we are today leads us to our third question: who do we want to become, or who will we become as a community? So we have this amazing opportunity and potential in the next 10, 20, 30 years in Concord with the ending of the prison and the opening up of the 60 acres of the old MCI and the new development. It's this amazing opportunity that Concord hasn't probably had in over 150 years to really transform who we're becoming and how we do that and who's invited in and what kind of homes we build and what kind of businesses we welcome really will help us, what I think, create what's going to become the new Concord in the next 20, 30, 40 years. And so I think that's why those first two questions lead in such important ways to this third one. Is this new Concord going to welcome in all sort of folks the way we did at the turn of the last century that created that 200% increase in population between like the 1860s and the 1930s? Are we going to do that same thing again and really become this amazing, diverse, inclusive, welcoming 21st century community? Because we know that that's what a place people want to live. That's the kind of place you want to raise your family in. That's the kind of place you want to live yourself. That's the kind of place you want to grow old in. So this podcast, I hope that we're able to find time and people who want to have that discussion about either who we were, who we are now, or who we're about to become. So I really invite you to stop back. We'll be trying to start these episodes about every month and really just engage in this conversation about really truly figuring out a way to make Concord a place that's for everyone and really create this Concord for All. So thanks so much, and thanks to Minuteman Media, and I hope to see you back at our first episode. Thanks.